So this is going to be a fun one to talk about, because this is an idea I've always had. Like, I've always had this idea, but I've never really talked about. And you know what? After doing the People I Know video for Dan, a.k.a. ToryGNR1, a.k.a. his new channel, to pump up his new channel, Conan Chronicles, which is basically a YouTube channel dedicated to all things Conan the Barbarian. Subscribe to that if you haven't already, or just go back to the previous video and check that one out. I decided finally to pull the trigger and do this as a video. I decided finally I'm going to do this as a video and talk about it. And that is, as you can see from the title, my Stormhawk's Headcannon, Repton the Barbarian. So Repton the Barbarian is basically a story that's an AU where it's not so much like a parody of Conan the Barbarian. It takes more of elements of Conan the Barbarian and kind of takes that fantasy AU and makes it its own. So that's kind of what I was going for, is that this is not so much a parody or a AU where it's Repton being Conan the Barbarian. It's more like, it kind of follows. It's more like that kind of idea without being a Conan AU. So let's get into it. So in this story, basically Conan. Let me back up. Repton is a barbarian who is a pit fighter, but he's an enslaved pit fighter, and he's been like this for years. He's been like this for decades. He's given like money and whatnot, and some women here and there, but really his whole thing is that he is a prince. He was a prince of a kingdom that is now under the massive Cyclonian Empire, and his brothers have all been gone missing. So he hasn't seen his brothers since his parents were killed by the Cyclonians, who they said, like, yeah, we'll join you, like Bo-Katan will, ally with you, and we will serve you. But then Cyclonus was like, nah. So she killed them both. So the grandmother, the Cyclonus previously, not Lark, she killed Repton's parents and more or less like took the princes, and the four brothers, and split them up. And they were all stripped of their, titles and whatnot, and strewn across the plains of Atmos, the world. So Repton has been more or less, for the past 15 years, he's done nothing but be a pit fighter, and his body's like just riddled with scars. He is, all he's known is fighting and violence. He's also worked as a mercenary and an assassin and a thief, but all he's known is fighting. But he never forgot about what the Cyclonians did to Bo-Katan, and he is going to one day find his brothers, and then he is going to kill Cyclonus. So one day, he encounters a group of young rebels. He encounters a group of 5 young rebels while on the streets. He just got out of a brothel. He's drunk. He just had sex. He stumbles out of a brothel, and he encounters these 5 young rebels, like more or less just attacking guards and fighting them, and they run off. And Repton, out of curiosity, follows after them, and he discovers that they call themselves the Stormhawks. Of course, it's Arrow, Piper, Junko, Radar, Finn, Piper. It's the original gang. We're all here, but they're a lot different. You see, in here, much like with Repton, Arrow was the son of a great warrior who was killed by Cyclonus, and he was left abandoned and alone, but he was raised by Argayan, a great sorcerer, who who had an apprentice named Piper. Piper was the apprentice, and she is a master sorceress as well. She actually has the ability to turn into a griffin. Like, her ability is that she can turn into a large griffin, whereas Argayan also trained Cyclonus, and she has the ability to turn into a large bat. So, a large monster bat. Because evil dragons are kind of overrated. We need more evil bats. Well, probably not, but like we need less generic evil monster. I don't know. So more or less, so basically they get Repton. They're like, hey, how about you come with us? You're a you're a great strong barbarian. How about you come with us and we can, we're a rebellion again. We're a young rebellion. And we're part of a group of people who are fighting against the Cyclonians as they keep taking over more and more of Atmos. And Repton's like, that's fucking stupid. I don't want anything to do with your war. If anything, I'm going to fight my own war. And then they're like, Arrow's like, well, you can either die alone or you can, fight for a cause. So Repton eventually does join the group, and he is brought back to their base, their underground base, and he encounters the rest of the rebel cells. And among them is someone he already ran into, and that's Starling. So in this universe, Starling was part of a elite group of warriors who were protecting a warlord, but Repton just showed up, killed all of her friends and allies, and killed their lord in a brutal assassination, but she survived. And she had this burning rage to kill Repton again. So the moment she sees Repton, she is immediately like, I am gonna fucking kill you. And goes for him immediately. Repton goes to defend himself, but the two are broken up, and it's more or less like, hey, save it for Cyclonus. We're here to fight together, not against one another. So stow that. So for lack of a better word, stow that shit. So Repton and Starling do, for the sake of, for right now, they decide to just temporary truce. But once everything is all taken care of, Starling basically tells Repton straight up, I'm going to kill you. When all of this is said and done and we defeat the Cyclonian Empire, I'm going to kill you. And Repton's like, funny, I was going to say the same thing. But don't die on me just yet. And she's like, yeah, don't die on me either. So the two form like a blood pact in a way, where they more or less swear to one another that they will not die by anyone else's hands, but one another's. So they have to both live to kill one another. So yeah, it's kind of like a weird suicide pact in a way. It's this very weird, it's this very weird suicide pact. So among the others, you have Harrier, who's like this aristocrat who's been the pseudo leader of the rebellion against Cyclonus, but Repton immediately points out that this guy should not be on the throne. If you make a new throne and take up, even if you somehow defeat the Cyclonians, if you somehow, by some goddamn miracle, defeat the Cyclonians, that guy should not be in charge. That guy literally is just going to repeat the same mistakes as every person who has come before him has. So do not put that guy on the throne. That is the last guy you want on your throne. And they're like, okay, asshole, do you want to be king? And he's like, no, if I'm going to be king, I'm going to take back my old kingdom. I want Bogaton again. I have my own kingdom, and I want to find my brothers again. If anyone should be king here, it's the kid. So Repton literally stands up for Arrow to be not only the leader of the rebellion, but also the next king. He just literally says, the kid's got it. Like, he's got it. The only kingdom I want to rule is my own. I want to take the kingdom of Bogaton back. And I want what is mine. So, eventually, the group, Starling decides to help Repton find his missing brothers. So he has to she has to help him find Hork, Spix, and Loogie. They sadly find out that all of the brothers have been killed. Cyclonus basically, like, after her grandmother was like, just scatter them to the winds, Cyclonus was like, fuck that, hunt them. She sent her night crawlers, who in this continuity are like demonic entities that are summoned by black magic. So she summoned the night crawlers and had them hunt down and kill the sons of Bogotan, because she knew if there was just one of them alive, no matter how dumb it was, even Lugi, she knew that they would be a threat and rally Bogotan against her. And she kind of needed them as like how Mordor needs orcs. That's kind of how raptors are used in this universe, is that they're kind of like the orcs of Mordor. But she knew that if any of these sons of Bogotan survived, it would be any of those princes. It would be like that. So far she's hunted down and killed all 3 of them, but she's been looking for Repton, and now she's found out that Repton is part of a rebellion against her, and he's like, oh, I can just kill 2 birds with 1 stone. And she sends Snipe to deal with them. And yeah, in this continuity, Snipe and Ravis are like a brother-sister team who are warriors who've been bred by Cyclonian inbreeding. Yeah, it's a little more keep it in the family, shall we say, with Ravis and Snipe this time around. Yeah, don't worry though, they get both brutally murdered by Repton and Starling. So by the end of this story, I'm just going to cut ahead to the end of it. Repton takes back Bogotan, and the Cyclonians are defeated, and Arrow becomes the new king. And Arrow gives Bogotan its autonomy back, and Repton becomes king, and he takes Starling as his queen, as his warrior queen, because your boy gotta have that ship. So there you go. Guys. Hope you all enjoyed this. I might come back to this story, like I do some others, and go a little more in depth with some things, but I thought I'd do the abridged version real quick. So there you go, guys. You guys tell me in the comments below, what did you all think of this? Like it, hate it, comment below, let me know. And as always, if you haven't already, go check out the link below to my Patreon and become a member there for exclusive content. But other than that, I'm Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in the Multiverse.